there, fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shireen.
And it is the last week of March. It is our sort of little extra random week of March.
Lucky y'all.
Yeah, and whenever this kind of thing comes about, I always feel like we wind up doing just something like a little extra, a little different that doesn't necessarily fall within the sphere of the theme of the month. Sometimes it does, but most of the time we just decide to like hop onto something new and do something different instead that we just feel like talking about. And so for the last episode of this month, I guess we decided to make ourselves sad. I don't know what we were doing. Anyway, we wanted to talk about something. No, that's not true. We wanted to talk about something new. So maybe like a newer adaptation or something like a little bit more recent. And sometimes we get kind of a chance to do that, but a lot of the time we don't, depending on, what we're talking about. So today we're going to be kind of discussing and making our way through, not in great details because we'd be here for 4 hours, but we're going to be kind of making our way through the most recent 2024 adaptation of One Day.
Back in the late 80s, it was all I thought about.
And now?
I thought I finally got rid of you.
I don't think you can. Let's pick up the phone, Emma. We're with Dex and Em, aren't we?
Imagine one selected day struck out of your life and think how different its course would have been.
The series was just released on Netflix in February of 2024, so I think I should preface this. I don't do it with most of the movies that we do because they're older, but spoilers. So many spoilers if you have not watched it yet.
But also, this was a movie adaptation that came out in 2000.
I don't think a lot of people have seen it because a lot of the reactions I've seen, 2011. Yeah. A lot of the reactions that I've seen online are people who were totally blown out of the water and had no idea what happened at the end of the movie. So the novel was written by David Nichols and it was published in 2009. And then there was a 2011 film adaptation of this book that starred Anne Hathaway and Jim Sturgis as the lead characters, and this is a mini-series adaptation of it. It's 14 episodes total. They're all about a half hour or shorter in some cases, depending on the episode that you're watching. And this particular adaptation stars Ambika Maud and Leah Woodall as the lead characters, who are Emma Morley and Dexter Mayhew, mostly Em and Dex.
And I don't know about the movie adaptation, but this show was actually written by the original author.
By David Nichols?
As well. Yeah, I believe.
It shows. I think, throughout the course of the episodes, it definitely shows. So there isn't too much of another rating or anything in place, but it does, at the time of recording, it does have a rating of 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb, so it's pretty high.
I've seen quite a lot of appreciation.
A lot of positivity around this. Yeah, I haven't seen much in terms of any negativity really around it.
No. I personally read the book I think in 2010 maybe, and then when the movie came out, I really liked the movie.
Yeah.
So I was a little hesitant to actually watch this show because I felt that having read the book and watched the movie, that they basically covered everything that there was to cover.
Yeah. And
it did, go quite into detail, and they did such a fantastic job. I found that Anne Hathaway and Jim Sturgis had really fantastic chemistry. And I'm a sucker for Jim Sturgis, and he was so freaking cute in the movie. He had such a baby face. And so when I was watching this show, it was interesting because I'm like, oh, it's obviously it's even more in detail, but it's exactly line for line the movie, which was pretty much line for line the book.
Right. And which again kind of shows, and obviously if the author of the novel wrote the screenplay for this show as well, you're like, oh, okay, no wonder.
And it's excellent.
Yes. Really, it is. Honestly, the performances, the story, everything is excellent. Before we get into it, there, just be aware, it is quite sad.
It's very sad.
Very much, I'd say, like, romantic drama is basically the theme or the genre that we're in for the majority of this. The premise of One Day overall is that it follows two characters, Em and Dex, who meet at University in Edinburgh the 15th of July, 1988, which is the day of their graduation. And like the little like sort of after party that they're having. And the premise of the story is that it follows Em and Dex and where they are in their lives and in their relationship with each other that same day, the 15th of July, every year. Once a year, we check in with them again, and every episode of the show is a different year until the end, where they speed things up a little bit, and we do jump into like a couple of years within one episode. But the majority of the show, I'd say like the first like 10 to 12 episodes are basically 1 year per episode on that one specific day. So on the 15th of July, they bump into each other during like an after party after their graduation, and there's like there's a moment, there's a little something there. They wind up kind of bumping into one another again. There is talk between the two of them, and she invites him back to her apartment.
Yeah, basically, Em has had a crush on Dex throughout university.
Because he's your pretty popular boy. Like, that's his thing.
And he's from, like, a wealthier family. Yeah. And she's from, like, kind of more of a working class family.
I'd say he's very upper middle class.
Very much. And a little, a little snobby, but not really snobby. He's just kind of got like, he kind of pulls it off well.
It's that sheltered sort of like, oh, I'm wealthy and I've never had to think about any of these things kind of.
And that comes through like in their first interaction, And and like Em is more of like your type A, like wants to plan everything out and know what's going on. And, she even says to him like, well, what's your plan? And he's like, travel. And she's like, well, that's
not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they're very, very different personalities.
But they're very drawn to each other.
Yeah.
And so they do have like a night that they spend together. They don't have sex, but they do like, like they kind of get to that point almost, but then they start speaking to each other and they have like, kind of good banter and things, but they do spend the night together in general. And, the next day you're kind of like, where is this going to go? Because it does seem like there's something there, but you can also tell that they have conflicting views on like what they want to do with themselves and everything. And they talk about their future, but again, not in like any kind of massive way. They go and hike up Arthur's Seat, which is a mountain in Edinburgh, like right outside of the city that you can pretty easily go to. That's a very famous
I've been
place for people to go.
Easy to walk up, but if you go down the wrong way, then you're rock climbing down a cliff. Okay, you got to go down from experience.
Go down in the right direction, basically. They're interrupted because his parents show up to see him because it's just post-graduation and everything. But he does, get her number. He runs after her because she's like, okay, I'm going to go. Things are awkward. Bye.
Knowing you. Bye.
And he does run after her to get her number, her contact info so that they can actually stay in contact. Keep in mind, it's 1988, so nobody's got a cell phone.
Or social media.
No. So nobody's like, give me your Insta or something. We skip forward. Episode 2 takes place a year later in 1989. Dex is in Italy.
Teaching English as a second language.
Quote unquote teaching. He's really just fucking girls in Rome.
Pretty much. And like his bills are being paid by his parents.
Yeah.
And his mom. So he's got a really good relationship with his mom. He's a bit of a mummy's boy. His dad is a little surly.
A lot more serious. Yeah.
In the show, his dad is like, he seems like surly, but like just more from an awkward perspective.
Yeah.
In the movie, his dad is like surly. Like he's not nice to Dexter.
Okay, yeah. No, they don't have a like an incredible relationship at the beginning of this show, but I wouldn't say that it's that terrible. There's like a little bit of tension, but it's just because like his dad's also like, you should be more serious about things and want to do something like, what are you doing with your time?
Yeah,
type of thing. Meanwhile, Emma is traveling with a small band of actors who are putting on plays in high schools and stuff like that about like the suffragette movement. And the director / playwright is her boyfriend at the time, who
she doesn't seem to like very much.
Not at all. And he has the worst fucking haircut in the world, doesn't he?
Well, like this is kind of a recurring theme with Emma. She kind of ends up with guys who she doesn't really like all that much, but who are quite enamored with her. And I think it's like a safety thing, you know?
Dexter's mom is also one to want to bring up, like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing after this? Like, let's be serious. Like, what are you going to do with your time after this? And this is the first time we're given an indication here that something might be wrong, because she does say she has something to talk to him about, and we don't really learn exactly what it is. Although, granted, when you're watching it, like, as we were watching it, I literally was like, oh, she's sick. Like, there's something wrong.
And it also goes to show that, like, Dexter has never been expected to handle any type of serious subject matter. And so, like, she's very much, like, trying to coddle him
into understanding that she does have cancer, unfortunately.
Right. And his dad is a little bit less forgiving with his attitude.
With that kind of stuff, yeah. So, at the end of all of this, like, that's it, Emma's gone through this whole run with the stage performances. She doesn't want to be an actress. She wants to be a writer. And she ends things with the boyfriend, because she's like, they're not in the same kind of place. He wants her to go with him and, like, continue doing this. He'll write and she'll perform in them and stuff. And she's like, no, thank you. So she winds up saying at first, she's like, oh, maybe I should move back to Leeds, because that's where she's from, and just work and, like, stay up north kind of thing. But she decides not to do that. She's like, no, I'm going to take this writing thing seriously. She calls her best friend Tilly, who's living in London, working in London. Tilly's hilarious.
Oh, she's great.
She's so funny.
She's really funny in the movie too, but she's a very, very different character in the movie. She's like semi-drunk most of the time. Oh, God. Instead of just being, like, quirky, she's, like, quirky and, like, wasted on something, basically. Yeah.
That is pretty different. Yeah, this one's just, like, she's just, like, a very quirky person. She speaks her mind all the time kind of thing. She's very funny.
Big personality.
Yeah, so she decides, she's like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm going to London. I'm going to be a writer. This is what I'm going to do. And Dex, at the same time in Italy, is deciding, I think I'm going to go to London as well. Kind of thing. The one thing I will say, though, is that I'm kind of like, not very nice, is that he does mention something about being interested in photography, and his mom is very dismissive of it. Yeah. Which I felt bad about.
Well, I mean, also, like, you got to understand, like, from his mom's perspective, like, she's sick. She's not doing well. She wants her son to do something.
I think that she also thinks that he's not being serious about it. It's just that you can tell that he kind of is actually interested in that. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. Yeah. And they do keep up with each other via postcards at this point. Like, he's sending her postcards. She sends some, like, letters back and things like that. So, jumping forward to episode 3, takes place in 1990. Dexter is back in London. Emma is also in London. He is starting to build up a career as, like, a TV presenter on some sort of, like, prank style show, it seems like.
With Large in it?
Yeah, something like that.
No, it's supposed to be like a late night talk show where they bring...
but there's one that he's just, like, on the streets, like, before that, like, when he's just starting. That's right. Before he gets into Large in it. Yeah,
that's right. Yes, it's like a prank style, but he gains quite a bit of popularity through that.
Yeah, with, like, a younger crowd, basically. So that's what he's doing. But it's, like, one of these, like, you know, very loud, very much for the younger generation types of things. Emma is not working as a writer. She's working in this Mexican restaurant that looks terrible. Oh my God, you have to sing, like, cucaracha, like, every half hour?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And it's just, like, grimy and gross, and it's, like, Mexican adjacent
Yeah,
food.
very. It's, like, Mexican with quotes, big old quotation marks around it. And she works as, like, a semi, like, sort of, like, assistant manager kind of thing, and she hates it. While she's there, like, you know, Dex comes to see her, but he's one of these two who's always flitting in and out of, like, relationships with different women, and you can tell that there is something between them, but they're so very at, like, different places in their lives. And, you know, she's now kind of getting intimidated because he's, like, building up a level of fame to a degree. She's still trying to do something. She feels like she's never going to be taken seriously for it all, and she's never really going to be able to do it.
She's kind of stuck in a rut. Like, she's kind of given up a little bit. You can tell on herself. At this point, you know, she wanted to be a writer, but she is working in this Mexican restaurant. I think she gets promoted to manager.
She does, like, at some point,
and she's, like, really put off by this.
She's so annoyed because she's
like, well, I guess this is what I do now for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
you know?
That's it. So again, she's having these things where she's like, should I just move back home? Like, fucking, like, why the hell am I even doing this? And he's the one who kind of, like, reminds her, like, hey, you are good. You will do something. Definitely. You will be able to do this.
She's very smart.
Yes. Yeah. And this is also a point where that's it. Like, you know, she starts to, like, I guess, change her mind about certain things, but also kind of think about him more in a certain context. When we jump forward into the fourth episode takes place in Greece because they are going on a trip together as a friend thing, because again, Dexter never does relationships at this point. He's just kind of like a serial dater, basically. So they go to Greece together on like this nice holiday, and they stay in this really nice place and stuff like that. But there's tension. There's tension back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah,
where
they're a
it's
little snitty.
And also, like, how do we act with each other? Like, do we, like, you know, sort of like, you know, she's saying things like, we're not going to have sex, but it's like, you're like, I think you kind of want to. Like, yeah, that's it. They go out to dinner and they play this game where they're like, let's share a secret with each other. And I'm like, whoa. He shares a secret that he's like, oh, like, you know, at one point he was out with like the girl that he's dating at this time kind of thing. He was really fucked up at a club. Dexter is a big self-medicator when there's something
he drinks a
wrong.
lot.
And his mom is ill at this point. We haven't seen her yet. Yeah. It's not till the next episode, but she is ill, and you can tell he's like starting to cope with that in unhealthy ways. Yeah. So, you know, and so he was out with his girlfriend and like off his face and stuff on whatever the hell, and apparently he kissed a guy, and he was fine with it, like, you know. And she doesn't judge him. She's like, did you like it? Like, were you okay with it? And he was like, yeah, it's fine. A mouth is a mouth. And you're like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Isn't he dating someone who's like quite famous at this point?
Yeah, I think one of maybe the girl who produces the show or something. I forget. Like that girl with the dark hair. You only see her for like one episode.
He's all about status at this point.
Yes, yeah, very much so. They're still in very different places. Her confession is that a few years ago, like in the 80s when they met, she had a fucking massive crush on him. A huge crush on him. And the little thing that they did where they were like, oh yeah, well, like, let's like do a confession thing and make a bet. So, you know, if it has to be something that the other person doesn't know, basically. And he's like, oh, well, it looks like you're paying for dinner. Because the whole thing was like, whoever, you know, has the better one pays for dinner, or the whatever, you know, pays for dinner. And he's like, well, you're paying for dinner. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I knew that because Tilly told him.
Tilly.
And you're like, and she's like, fuck's sake. But then that automatically causes like a weird, tense kind of now no one knows how to act around each other thing. He gets really drunk at dinner. They're walking home and they stop near the water, and he's like, oh, let's get in, let's go swimming. So he like, you know, strips down to go skinny dipping. And she's like, no. But then she, you know, changes her mind and goes in with him. And they do have a moment where she says to him, I feel like you're always like keeping me on the hook, basically. Like you're always kind of like, well, if nothing else works out, I've got good old Emma back there to, you know, maybe take care of me kind of thing or whatever. And he basically is like, no, like I liked you too. I like you now, but I'm not in that place where I'm really going to be able to like do a relationship thing right now. But basically, if you want to fuck, we can do that. And she's like, ew.
Yeah.
And that you can tell kills her crush a little bit, which I don't blame her for at all.
What's interesting about the movie adaptation of this is that I think because the actors either seemed or were older.
Yes.
There's definitely a lot more of like an older feel to their
relationship dynamic, I guess.
Yeah, like Anne Hathaway just feels a lot more mature and a lot more of an adult.
Sure.
Regardless of what's going on in her life, you know, as a character. And Jim Sturgis as well, like just he pulls off like the dick persona a lot better. Okay. Because like this character, he looks young, and so you're kind of like, oh well, he's just immature. Like he's just young. Like he needs to come into himself. I guess
I felt that way about it at first, but by this point, like when she does have this realization that he was just kind of he strings her along a lot. I don't know. I find that, and I guess I find that works because while I'm sure I haven't seen the movie, but while I'm sure that I would guess like appreciate it for that kind of dynamic because I would understand it better as someone in my 30s, right, watching this. I guess what I appreciate in watching this with characters that actually appear younger as well and appear that they're the age that they're playing, basically, especially at the beginning of this because they're in like their early 20s. Yeah. I guess what I appreciate about that is that the kinds of things that he's doing are extremely immature and shitty and something that a young, like a little boy would do. And I guess I just feel like it fits well because Leo Woodall looks younger, like a younger character.
True.
And I guess I feel like that fits. Anyway, so that's kind of how that episode ends. When we get into episode 5, Dexter's all fucked at a club because, again, that's how he spends a lot of his time, is doing a lot of drugs.
Like, at this point, he's got a drug and alcohol problem.
100% he does. Like, it's quite severe.
He's on Larging It. Like, he's like a proper show host at this point.
Yeah, he's doing a lot more on television. And anyway, and he's doing all these things to cope because his mom is quite sick at this point. So at the beginning of this episode, he's all fucked up. But then he wakes up like half out of it and realizes he's supposed to have driven up to visit his parents. But he's still like coming down from whatever the fuck he was on, basically. He brings his mom a gift of some books from Emma, and his parents adore Emma. They love her.
Yeah, I think even though they say in one of the episodes that the first time Emma met his dad, she like called him like a
bourgeois fascist.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, a bourgeois
it's so
fascist.
Great.
It's really funny.
But they love her because even there will be a flash of that particular, because apparently Christmas of 1988, she went to their house with him for Christmas just to spend some time, and she said, and that's it. Apparently, I guess she got drunk at dinner and she started going off about like classism and class divides and things, and so she calls his dad a bourgeois fascist. But when you see the flash of like when his parents are talking about that, his mom loves her, and his dad says that he's like, she called me a bourgeois fascist, but then he starts laughing immediately, and it's
like
so
it's one of the
cute.
Rare moments that his dad is like,
it's so adorable,
jolly.
It's so sweet. They love her. So he visits his mom. He is still like really fucked up, falls asleep for several hours and things like that in the house, and when his mom wakes him up to basically tell him how disappointed she is with him and how much she really wishes that he would be doing something else with his time and with his energy, and how he could be doing more, and this is so disappointing, and he really hasn't reached the potential that he should have.
There's an interesting moment, and I can't remember if it's in this episode or the one where she sees him in Italy, where she's talking to him about like his future, and like she basically says like, you just need to be a nice person. Like,
I think that's the one in Italy. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, where she says something along the lines of like, it doesn't really matter what you do, but you need to be a nice person. And I can't recall if they do it in the show, but in the movie, there's a moment, and I think it happens in the next episode, where basically like Em and Dex are arguing because they go out for dinner and he's off his face on something, and she gets mad and says like, I guess we're not friends anymore. In the movie, she turns around and says, I love you, but I don't like you anymore because you're not nice.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting, like watching the show, because I'm like, oh, so his mom says it directly to him.
Just be nice.
Well,
you need to just be nice. Yeah. So, anyway, when he wakes up, but that's it, after all of these hours of this, he goes to leave. His dad's hidden his car keys because he's like, no, you're still fucked up, so you're not driving. Yeah. His dad drives him to the train station. He's like, no, you can come and get your car next weekend when you're better. And this is like a moment where his dad was completely justified in everything that he says, because he says to him, because you can obviously his wife is dying. This man is struggling as well. But he says to him, he's like, you know, you're going to go off and you're going to do whatever the fuck you want. But he's like, if you ever come back here to see your mother with the time that she has left, the way that you did this weekend, you are not coming in. I will not allow you into the house. Get out of my car.
Yep.
And that's it. And I was like, okay, good. Great.
Yep.
Emma is still working at the Mexican restaurant and has, there's this guy named Ian who starts working there. I like Ian. He's like ridiculous, and you think you're gonna hate him, but I kind of like Ian anyway. So there's this guy Ian who started working at the restaurant who asks her out. He's one of these who again gets a little bit weird and a little bit inappropriate sometimes because he's an aspiring comedian. So he's one of those who makes really awkward jokes, and you're like, oh God. Anyway, she goes out on a date with him, and again, he's overcompensating for a while. At first, he makes weird voices, he puts on things, whatever. But overall, he is sweet, and he's just nervous.
Yeah.
So they do kind of hit it off. They have their date at the same time that Dex is having like a breakdown, basically about his mom and about his whole situation. So he leaves her like a really sad kind of voicemail, and then remembering that, oh yeah, she has a date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hop forward to episode 6 is 1993. Em is still living in London, working as a teacher at a school, and she's putting on a play.
And she's living with Ian
at this point. Putting on a play for like the first time with her students. So she's practicing for it. She's excited and she's really nervous for it because it's a high school play. We all know how it's going to turn out. And she has, in my opinion, a really uncomfortable interaction with the headmaster of the school, who seems to have more than just a passing interest in her. And you can tell by the way that he's looking at her and speaking to her, there's like a weird tension there. And that whole scene where they're chatting, I was like, this is so uncomfortable and I hate it. Because you can tell that she's kind of like maybe flattered, but also really like, oh.
Like, you're a lot older than me.
Like, wow. And he's also has a fiance at this point, and she's in a relationship with Ian.
And also there's like that power dynamic between him being the headmaster and her being a teacher at the school.
Exactly. She works through the rehearsals with her students. She helps one of the girls who's having like some anxiety problems and stuff. So she's actually like, might not be doing exactly what she wants to be doing with her life, but she's doing well. Ian's very sweet. He's there to like bring her food before the show and stuff like that. Like, he's nice. He's there to support, basically. She speaks to Dex on the phone a couple of times because he is about to go out and do a live show, that Large in It thing there.
That's right, yeah.
With his co-host. He's about to go and do that, but what he's seeing at the same time is that there are not reviews, but there are articles being printed about him that he's like an idiot, basically. Like, he's like
annoying.
Is he like the most annoying man on television kind of thing and stuff. So of course,
like, his co-host is equally annoying and loud, and we're led to understand that he's dating her at this point.
Yeah, I think he dates her for a while.
Her name's Suki.
Suki. Yeah. So that's the thing, is that I think also like people are writing that because of course all the female fans really like him because he's cute and like charming and things. But of course a lot of men are just like, oh, what a fucking idiot. And people make fun of him and stuff. And
he takes this very personally.
Really badly.
Like, for somebody who's working on television, like, he does not have a thick skin for critics.
No, not at all. I don't know, because we've jumped ahead a year now. Has his mom passed away at this point? I think so.
And
I think that might be part of the reason that he's gotten all kind of fucked with things and everything. So he calls Emma and does this thing that I hate because it's very gross and selfish, where because he's been reading all of this, like, she's just trying to talk him down to be like, it's fine, don't listen to them, you're good, you can go out, you can do this, no problem. She's being very supportive, and he's like, why aren't you here? I want you to be here. Like, even just come after, I'll send a car for you and stuff. And she's like, I can't, like, we have the show, I have to speak to the parents after, we have all this stuff kind of thing going on, like, maybe I'll try and come, I don't know if I can, kind of thing. And he just like, anyway, he just like doesn't take it well. But it's just, I hate the language that he uses is very manipulative, and I don't like it. And it's like he needs her. He has this like weird codependency with her that I don't appreciate at all.
But at this point, she's like moving away from him because she's found like her kind of like purpose. If you will.
That's it. She's found at least something that she can be doing to an extent.
She feels that like, and I think that this moment really illustrates that he doesn't really respect what she does because he thinks that because he's a TV show host, like, he's a lot more important than she is, and what she's doing is not that impactful.
Exactly. So he of course, because he's all upset about all of these things, he pours a whole bunch of vodka into a water bottle, which he's going to take with him out on stage, even though he's already very drunk at the beginning of this. And of course, we see it happen quickly, but he doesn't realize it at first. Suki accidentally grabs the water bottle that has a bunch of alcohol in it. So they go, and it's a live show. So, it's not like you can do another take or something. He goes out and he basically doesn't have a panic attack, but he's so out of it that he can't really do anything on stage. And he's all nervous and he's like sweating and stuff.
Yeah, because you're also led to believe he's not only drunk, he's on
No, I think he's on something as well. That's it. And then, of course, poor Suki is trying to like carry the show, and she takes a sip of the vodka and chokes on it immediately. So they have this whole awkward moment and stuff, which is again captured live on camera. And she does what she can to like salvage a little bit, but there's only so much that she can do by herself when he's standing there like a deer caught in the headlights. Right. So it's a really awkward show. Emma sees it at the end of the night when she goes back home with Ian. Ian does not like Dex. And what he says, I do kind of understand when he's like, I just feel like he takes advantage of you.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's that he takes advantage of her, like, from an emotional standpoint. Yes. So it's like he'll go to Emma when he wants to have some sort of level of
emotional support.
And like real conversation. But then he's kind of like, oh, I've had my fill, I'm good.
I'm gonna go back to the bimbos and stuff, like the people who just like me for my persona and things like that, and not this person who sees through a lot of that.
Totally.
So we see all of this happen. We jump forward again to the following year. So we're in what? Where are we now? We would be in 1994 now. Sorry. So everybody. So at this point, unfortunately, we're seeing that Emma is not very happy in her relationship with Ian anymore. There's tension between the two of them. She's going out for an evening with Dexter, who again has not made any work to get over his mother's death, to do any of this stuff. They go to a very fancy restaurant, and at first things are okay, but then he's really intoxicated and stuff. It's really bothering her, and he's acting like a pretentious piece of shit, basically. She's uncomfortable with, like, because again, she's very like down to earth. She's uncomfortable with the kind of food that there is and stuff. She's like, I just want like the fish and chips. Like, she don't want anything.
She's like, I would rather go to that Mexican restaurant.
That's it. Like, she doesn't want anything, and it's just like this like pretentious put on, and she doesn't like it. You know, like this is one of those places that still has like cigarette girls, and stuff. And she's like one of the girls who's there. She's like, do you think she likes what she's doing? He's like, I don't know. Maybe it makes her feel sexy and stuff. It's just like a very male comment to make that you're like, oh,
and
for
he's
God's
all
sake.
About like talking about things that make you sexy and
things,
stuff,
and that
like,
make you look good and all these kinds of things. So she just, it makes her uncomfortable. The whole thing makes her uncomfortable, and she's like trying to, every time she tries to bring up something about teaching and stuff where she feels like she's a bit stagnant and she's stuck, or if she tries to bring up something about things with Ian, he gets up from the table, like he leaves, and basically he's going to do like a bump of coke in the bathroom. But it's like every time she tries to like have an actual conversation, he's just like, nope, not having that. And so she's just like, she's pissed and she's very annoyed and stuff. And he gets like hostile and stuff and everything towards her, where he's like, they have this conversation where she's trying to talk about the fact that she feels stuck. And he's like, well, maybe this is what you're supposed to do and everything. Like, you know, you keep saying this about writing, but then you're not doing anything with it. So, you know, and it's basically, he tells her like, well, you know, those who can't do teach. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, that was such a dick
That
comment.
was not nice at all.
And she's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this.
So she knocks all the food over onto him on the table, good for her, and storms off. He chases her out into the street, and they have, this really intense fight between the two of them, where she's like, you know, you used to build me up and make me feel good about myself, now you just make me feel like shit. Where basically they both do have certain, like a point to a certain degree, right? Where she talks about that, where like, you know, she's like, you haven't dealt with anything, you don't know what you're doing with stuff and everything, and he points out to her, he's like, all you do is make me feel like an idiot most of the time, and all you do is comment on like the things that I do and everything and make me feel like I'm stupid and stuff like that. And she's like, I don't think I do that, but he's like, you do. And sometimes she does. Like, she can be very judgmental and kind of condescending about things. So they have this really terrible fight, and then part ways, basically. Jump forward to the next year in 1995, and this is the beginning of a period of time in which we just get episodes about each of them, because they're not in contact with each other for, I think, 2 or 3 years. Basically, they don't see each other. So 1995, the school year has ended, and unfortunately people are making bad choices all over the place. So Emma and Ian broke up like some period of time, several months ago is my understanding, throughout the course of the past year, and she is having an affair with the headmaster, Phil, who's married.
And she doesn't really seem to like him all that much.
No, she's just doing it because I think
he's really not cute
I think
either.
Because he gave her so much attention and so much validation, I believe that maybe she was just attracted to that idea. He's not bad looking.
Well,
don't get me wrong,
attracted to him. I think he's just someone who's not Ian.
No, I think so. Yeah, that's it. And I don't know. And like, look, don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for a Scottish accent, but like, this guy is not cool at all.
No.
So, and you know, and he's much more keen than she is. You can tell where he gives her a phone, a Nokia brick. Remember those? That was my first cell phone, was like one of those Nokia bricks.
I laughed when I saw that on the screen. I was like, oh my God, it's like a what our landline phones turned into eventually, like that size.
Yeah, that's it. So anyway, it's the end of term, and of course he's going off with his wife for the summer. and wants them to keep in touch. But this is kind of the point where you can tell she's like, no, I don't think this is a good idea at all. She goes home and Ian is there. And like I said, even though they've been broken up for several months, Ian's a mess because he obviously, he really loved her. Yeah. And this has really taken a toll on him, obviously. So he's drunk. He's not doing well at all. He's acting like an asshole. And she needs to tell him off. He thinks that her and Dexter have a relationship where she's literally like, we haven't spoken in a year.
Yeah, and he's gone through all of her journals and her poetry.
And he's looking at things from also a number of years ago as well. And
but he's using that as
fuel.
Evidence that she has feelings for Dexter.
Yeah, that's it. And she's like, no. So they do have this argument where finally he does calm down and he just basically is like, I'm sorry, I'm such a fucking mess. I miss you very much. And she's kind, but firm with him when she basically tells him, I'm not, we're not going to get back together. We're not going to do any of that, kind of thing. And he's like, will it get better? And she's like, yeah, eventually it will. It'll get better. Yeah. After he leaves, she does have moments where she thinks about everything with Dexter and stuff like that. She runs into that former student and stuff who turns out is also going to the University of Edinburgh and studying English, which is exactly what she did.
She says it's because of you. And it's really, I laughed in this scene because Emma's I don't know if she's smoking a cigarette or a joint.
No, it's a joint.
And she's got alcohol in her bag and she's like, this is the weekly shop. And it's
my weekly shop. And then she throws the weed onto the ground. She's just like, oh, someone just gave me this as I was passing by. It's really funny.
It's really funny. And Emma has this moment of oh my God, what am I doing with my life?
So she goes home to start writing her novel.
And she does. Yeah. She turns on her computer and she starts writing.
Yep. Episode 9 takes place in 1996, and at this point, Dex, this is an episode that's specifically focused on Dex, he has met this woman named Sylvie, who he started dating, and they are going to visit her family for the weekend. They're very posh, they're very wealthy. When they walk into the house, you're like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's in a manor.
It's like an estate, basically. Yeah, that's it, exactly. They're horrible, they're gross, and...
they're not nice to him either. And remember,
gross
he
and
comes
priggish.
from a fairly
pretty nice family as well. They have this beautiful house in the country. Right, it's so lovely.
But not to this
level. No. Their house actually, like Dex's family's house, you could actually live there. This house is stupid.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, they go to this dinner and this whole weekend with her parents because they're traveling, but they're stopping there on the way. Apparently she's close to her family, but they're awful. I don't know why she would be.
I think it's just who they are, maybe. Yeah. And she keeps saying because she has she's got
twin brothers.
Younger twin brothers. Yeah. And they're just so mean to him.
They're fucking annoying.
And then the parents just keep jumping on what they're saying and adding to it. And Sylvie keeps saying, oh, well, they like you. They're just kind of having a joke and a laugh. Yeah. And it's okay, at what point is this a joke? Because this is actually quite mean.
Yeah, it's very mean-spirited. It's not nice at all. Unfortunately, at this time, he also gets a call from his agent to tell him that the game review show or whatever the fuck he was doing.
Yeah, he's at this point doing a game review show.
He's doing shitty shows because he wasn't able to continue with Large in it or whatever because he fucked up so badly with that first series. So that he won't be able to do that anymore. So he basically is now jobless. They play this ridiculous game with Sylvie's family.
Are you there, Moriarty?
Where apparently you put a blindfold on, you hold
it's
each other's...
Marco Polo, but I don't understand how it works.
No, it's I guess it's because you're supposed to hear where the person says... you say, are you there, Moriarty? The other person says yes, and then you hit them with a rolled up newspaper. Is this what rich people think violence is like? I don't understand.
I think they're supposed to dodge out the way or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Dexter has to play, and he's playing with Sylvie, and she's trying to get him into the game.
Oh my God.
He smacks her so hard with the newspaper. It's her nose is almost broken.
Oh my God.
Family's you didn't even say, are you there, Moriarty?
Oh my God.
It's so funny.
It's so terrible because of course he's reeling from all of this information from his agent and all this stuff, and he's pissed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he does obviously ask her for forgiveness later, and she's like, yes, fine, okay. And he's laughing about something because he's thinking about Emma, and he's thinking about how funny she would find this story later, and he wishes he could tell her about it, even though they haven't spoken in a couple of years. And he tells Sylvie that he loves her, which I think is just covering up for something else, whatever. And then we jump into the next episode, which is in 1997. This is the first time that they'll have seen each other. That's it in basically 3 years.
And it's Tilly's
wedding. She's marrying this guy named Graham. Graham is so fucking funny later. God. Graham's a surveyor, like a property surveyor. Yes. So he's like an inspector, basically.
But they've been together forever. Like Tilly and Graham, the understanding
is like 2 or 3 episodes prior, which was like a few years ago. It might have been actually the last time that they saw each other. Emma was telling Dex that like Tilly's obsessed with this guy Graham now, and she just like mentions
now they're getting married.
Yeah, now they're getting married, which is really nice. So he goes to the wedding with Sylvie, and she's there on her own, like with their group of friends and everything. Who they all show up late. It's like a funny little thing in the car at the beginning, and they see each other and speak to each other for the first time again in 3 years, basically, and reconnect a little bit. They decide to like chat about some stuff. This is also where we see Callum again for the first time. We haven't seen Callum in years. Yeah. So Callum is Dex's friend from the University of Edinburgh. Who's
also a wealthy jerk.
Wealthy, kind of an asshole, and kind of like an idiot in this.
In the show he's a little bit of a bumbling idiot, kind of. Yeah. In the movie he is not. He's like this very good looking, suave, intelligent guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Callum owns like I guess a number of bakeries or something. He's a
like
businessman.
Organic,
he's like organic bakeries or something like that. And because Dex is really floundering and stuff like that, he offers him a job. And Dex is very hesitant to take something like that at first. But we'll see by the next episode. Unfortunately, he has done that.
No choice.
Yeah, Dex and Emma go on a walk and talk through a couple of things, and they say they missed each other, like they miss like talking to each other and everything. And then he lets us know that he and Sylvie are engaged, and not for any great reasons, because she's pregnant. So, because he's like, we're getting married in 7 weeks. Here's a wedding invite. I think they call it a shotgun wedding. And she's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, Emma is like clearly brokenhearted at this news, but she has to pull herself together and be happy for him.
Yes, and they kiss, which is not great, because it's not really a good idea to be doing that.
Yep.
And also, this is a time in life where things are starting to go in different directions, where Dex is basically having to accept almost a working class job at this point. And Emma, meanwhile, has been given a bit of an advance from a publisher for a novel, so she's able to take some time off teaching so that she can actually write her book.
Yeah.
So they do promise to remain friends. That they have a kiss, it's uncomfortable. But then they do promise to keep in touch and remain friends. So then, jump forward into the next episode in 1988. They do call each other like they are still friends. 1998, sorry, 1988. Wow.
I'm like, that's where we started,
Megan. I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. Anyway, they jump forward into 1988. They do still call each other. They talk to each other regularly. They see each other semi-regularly as well.
Dex is married to Sylvie.
He has
a daughter, Jasmine, who he calls Jazz.
I don't know why she hates that.
Pisses Sylvie off to no end.
I don't know why she hates that. That's all I would call my kid.
Jazzy, and she really hates it.
I don't know why.
Because she's like hoity-toity.
I think it's because she hates everything now. Yeah, they're very clearly, they should not have gotten married. These two, they're not right for each other, and they're pretty miserable together. They're having like the place that they bought, they're having it renovated, and she's just, you can tell she's just going stir crazy from like being there all the time, and like the baby cries all the time, and she's stuck in there, and everything's like messy and dusty and dirty, and it's just like a lot of new mom stuff, which is understandable.
So she's going for a bachelorette weekend, and I'm using air quotes here.
Yeah.
And Dex will be looking after Jasmine,
and she does not trust him to do that.
And she does not trust him. Like, she keeps being like, oh, maybe I just shouldn't go, you know?
And, like, she's partially correct to a degree, because he is still, like, he's drinking a lot and stuff like that. He takes care of Jazz fine. Like, nothing happens. She's fine. But it is still, like, a little weird. And then Sylvie calls him to check in at some point in the evening again, because she doesn't trust him that well. And they have a very stilted conversation where he says he's really trying to do better, and he loves her. And they get off the phone, and unfortunately, at this point, we see that she's in a hotel room and stuff, but she's not at a hen party or like a bachelorette weekend or anything like that. She's having an affair with Callum. Great. Just what we want.
Fabulous.
Super.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's it. Jump forward to 1999. They're in the middle of a contentious divorce at this point, trying to deal with everything, obviously, because I assume she either admitted to or he found out about the affair. I don't know.
either way, it was obvious that that's how it was going to end because they just were not.
No, they were not meant to be together at all. So Emma is living in Paris. She has one book published and a second one that she's currently working on, which is set in Paris. So she's there for a period of time to do like some research and stuff. And Dex is going to visit her as like a cheer me up kind of weekend.
Yeah.
He goes to see her. He's definitely having a lot of trouble, like, you know, struggling quite a bit and everything. He doesn't get to see his daughter as often as he'd like to, you know, and it's just like a really rough time. Like, he's having a rough time. He's had to pick himself up and try and find a different job and everything, because I'm sure he didn't want to keep working for Callum at that point. Because this guy's having a fucking affair with his wife. Like, that's gross.
And we're led to understand that over the course of the year, like, since he's been going through this divorce, he has seen Emma, and they have
this one time
together.
There was a one evening where he was very, very drunk, and she was probably a little bit drunk as well, trying to console him, and they wound up sleeping together.
And
they've like not spoken about it since.
And at this point, like, Dex is going to see Emma because it's like he's had this like epiphany that like she's the one, and he wants to be with her, and like, you know, that night that we had, it wasn't just sex, it was more than that. And like, you know, so he's going to Paris with all these expectations.
And when he gets there, they have like, you know, like a perfectly nice time to begin with. They go back to her flat, which is so cute, by the way. Her little apartment that she has is beautiful. And he tries to kiss her, and then she tells him that she's met someone, and he's like, what the fuck? Because I guess they slept together like months ago.
Yeah, and then she went off to Paris.
That's it, because she was going anyway. So, she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, what the fuck? I thought there was something like happening here. And she's like, we didn't talk about it. It was just like, it was probably a mistake because of this, that, or the other, because she's also like at the point where she's had so much back and forth with him that I think she feels like if she lets herself get involved with this, she's never going to recover from it. Like, if something goes wrong, she will never recover from it at all.
Yep.
Her boyfriend Jean-Pierre shows up, and of course Dex is immediately annoyed because he's tall and good looking.
And French.
And
like Brits versus the French, it's just
they're all going to be annoyed with each other. They have like a really awkward conversation, and the three of them are supposed to go out for dinner, but he fakes that he has like tonsillitis. He's like, I think I picked something up on the train. I think I'm just going to stay. Sorry, bye. The two of them leave together. She's like, okay, well, I'm staying with him later, so I'll be back tomorrow. But she basically turns around like very shortly thereafter and goes back to the place. And they have this like a very romantic like moment, obviously, where, you know, she comes back and he's like, what's wrong? And she's just like, I have tonsillitis too. I told Jean-Pierre like I had to leave. And then they have sex. They get together. It's really cute. And they spend like the rest of the evening together, and they're sort of making it official. And she says to him, she's like, if you
mess me about,
if you do anything, I will kill you.
I will actually murder you.
Yes, because she's been thinking about this
genuinely means it at this point.
Yeah, because she's been thinking about this for such a long time that for her, like, if this is going to be real, like,
it's taken a decade at this point.
Yeah, like if you do anything to me now, I will fucking kill you, which I don't blame her for. We jump forward to the next episode, which is a year later in 2000. They're together. They're back in England. They don't live together, but they are together, and she's there most of the time anyway. He wants her to move in with him. And Dex is also in the middle of kind of picking things up for himself, and he's opening a bakery. And he needs like a little bit of like startup cash and stuff, so he's working through a business plan, and they're going to present it to a real estate agent and also his dad, who would be like
his investor.
His investor, basically. And he also does have like money from his mom that she left him in her will as well, so it's sort of deciding like what to do with it, and this is the plan that he's finally putting into motion. So, and you know, she's the one who's like really hyping him up to be like, yes, you can do this, yes, it's a good idea and stuff. They do go meet with the real estate agent and with his dad. The dad and Emma have like a really nice conversation. You can have like, he loves her.
Yeah, he does. They're so sweet.
He wants her opinion.
He wants her opinion.
Do you think he can do this? Like, how good of an idea is this and everything? And she's like, yes, 100% he can. He definitely can.
And that's all his dad needed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We jump forward in this episode more than once. So it's now we're 2001. So we're a year later. He's opened the cafe. It's quiet, but I think that it's building up slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And when Emma is, they're planning their wedding because they're engaged now. They live together. She is just getting started on book 4 in the series. She has like a middle grade young adult kind of series about this girl. And Emma's one of those who's always like, you can tell she's probably proud of it, but she's very self-deprecating. Yeah. She's always like, it's not that good. And everybody's like, yes, it is.
Yeah. Like, you wouldn't be able to write and publish 4 books if they weren't that good.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. They spend part of the day with Jasmine because obviously he and Sylvie share custody of her. She's really cute. And they have a conversation because, of course, at first she's saying, like, oh, no, I don't think I could ever be a mom. I don't think I could ever do that, blah, 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 kind of thing. But then when her and Dex talk about it, after Jazz falls asleep in the bed with him, she basically says to him, like, no, I want to have a baby.
Yeah.
Like, I want to have a kid. Then we jump forward into 2002, and it's a year later, and they are married now, and they've been trying to have a baby for about a year, but unfortunately it hasn't panned out yet, and so they have an argument over fucking absolutely nothing at breakfast. Think about this, we're 2002. She's just talking about political stuff. So she says, oh, Afghanistan's a mess right now. Because if you think about, this was post 9/11. So obviously Afghanistan was a fucking mess in July of 2002.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Anyway, and she kind of starts an argument over nothing, but it's really just because she's upset because she's not pregnant. And so anyway, she spends the day writing. She goes swimming a lot as like a way to like think and like, work out and stuff like that. He goes to the cafe, which does seem to be doing very well. Like, it's quite thriving at this point, which is nice.
Yeah.
They're meant to be meeting because they're selling their current place and moving into a bigger one.
Yeah,
so they're meant to
have a family.
Yeah, so they're meant to be meeting to take a look at a place. So he's gone somewhere to meet her. And during the day, they've not caught each other via phone call, but they've left each other voicemails. So he leaves her a voicemail, and earlier that says he's sorry for like being angry and everything. And then she calls him back later and says that she was like, I was mad about all that other stuff. I'm not really angry with you and everything. That's not what I meant and stuff like that. I might be a little bit late, but I'm on my way. And unfortunately, so trigger warning for everybody, she's on her bike and she's on her way to go and meet him, like at, I guess maybe with an estate agent, I don't know, at this place that they're supposed to see. And it's raining a lot. And she like turns a corner and this car comes out of nowhere and hits her. And unfortunately, she dies like right at the accident scene. And that's pretty much...
that's the end of that episode.
That's the end of the episode, yeah, exactly. And she dies, and this is exactly 15 years after the day that they met, basically.
And
so
it's the same day.
And it's the same day, so it's 15 years to the day since they officially met each other. Then the final episode of the series, we've jumped forward by another year, so it would be 2003 at this point. It's exactly 1 year after her death. Dex is obviously, he's back on a completely self-destructive bender. Because I think that even if potentially while they were together and everything, he was still maybe drinking a bit and stuff, it was obviously very moderated and he was doing well. Like he was doing well.
Well, they kind of visit this a few times throughout the series where he actually stops drinking altogether.
Yeah, where he's like, oh, I'm just being careful not to really touch it much and stuff, which is fine. Good. So he's a mess. He's taken Jasmine to like a school
birthday party.
Something, whatever.
Party.
And there's a bunch of little party thing. There's like a bunch of the other moms there, but he's he's fucked up. He's on something. And he's just like dancing in the middle of the dance floor and acting really weird. And the moms are all like, what the hell is going on? So totally in drunk. I think he's on coke or something. Yeah. So he takes Jazz back to Sylvie's place. And she's like, no, you shouldn't have had her today. Like, this was a bad idea because it's 1 year to the day since his wife died. Like, that's insane. And he's like, no, it's fine. And she's like, can we do something? Are you okay? And he's like, no, I'm fine. He wanders off.
And then he goes on a complete bender.
A total bender. Winds up at a bar later that evening.
Doesn't get served anymore because he's too drunk.
Yeah, like literally, like
goes off to a strip club.
Gets like kind of like a little bit violent, like just out of nowhere with the stripper, just because he's like not thinking about things.
Then he gets kind of beat up
and kicked out.
Yeah,
winds up somehow back at Sylvie's place, like on her floor, like in the foyer downstairs, kind of thing. And she's trying to like clean him up. She goes through this whole thing. She like helps clean him up. She does all of this stuff to help him, and then she takes him to his dad's place, where he stays for quite a while, honestly.
To try and get over this. And like his dad is, a nice man, but also is kind of like, hey, I lost my wife too, so I had to move on with my life.
Yeah, that's it. So and I get it, but I'm also like, anyway. So he stays there for a while, and just like that's it. It just like there's this really sad scene because he's just like crying like uncontrollably, like in his like childhood bed, like in the house, and you're like, oh god, it's horrible. Anyway, we jump ahead again. Yeah, we jump ahead again another year. So now we're 2 years later in 2004, and he's at his place, and like Tilly and Graham and Sylvie and Ian show up at his house because they're like, we didn't want you to be by yourself. Oh, and his dad show up at his house because they're like, we didn't want you to be by yourself. He's moved into like a new place, a little like much further away from the city and stuff like that, and it's like a little bit shitty. He's trying to like fix it slowly but surely, but they do visit him. There's some really funny scenes here where Graham won't stop inspecting the place and commenting on it. And he's like, oh, it's too bad that you like sold that place in this area, like about like Tilly with like the place that she shared, I think with Em back in the day when they were roommates and stuff. And he's like, well, it's like a really great neighborhood now. So it's just really funny. He just makes like these comments that kind of break the tension, sort of. Anyway, and you can tell like, he's appreciative that everybody's there, but he's also like still struggling a lot with things. So after everyone leaves at the end of the night, he gets drunk, and he sits in one of the spare rooms that he has in the place, and it's just got Emma's stuff like in a box. And then he has a moment where he like talks to her, like she's there in the scene kind of thing, and she's like you could just throw it out like if you want to, like that's fine. And he's like, I'm not gonna do that and stuff. And they have this whole moment where she tells him like she's like, yeah, this is gonna continue to be terrible for a while, and she's like, like that's what's gonna happen. She's like, you're gonna have to pretend like later Tilly's gonna call you, Sylvie's gonna call you, your dad might call you, and you're gonna have to pretend that you're not as drunk as you are, and they're gonna be concerned about you for a while, and then you're probably gonna do it again a few times, and then eventually that will fade and things will get better a little bit. And so he has like a little bit of, I think, like a catharsis with that to a certain extent. And then the final scene, whatever the final section, jumps forward by actually 3 years after that, so it's 2007, and he's gone to Edinburgh with Jasmine and his dad, and they go to the university and they look around and everything at where like he and Emma met, and they hike up Arthur's Seat again, which I don't think he's done since basically the day after they met, so they get to go do that, which is really nice. And he shows them like kind of everywhere that they went on like the first day that they met. And he goes by on his own. He goes by her old apartment, where they had gone originally. And he kind of and then what he remembers is sort of like the final scene is the kiss that they had on the steps in that first encounter the day after, when he went to make sure that he got her number and stuff, because she was telling him, like, we saw a scene that we hadn't seen before when they were hiking down, when they finished at Arthur's Seat, where she was like, you and I are probably like not going to be friends and stuff, like you're going to go off and do your own thing, I'm going to go off and do my own thing, so we'll just like appreciate this for what it was. So then after, when they get back down, when he chases after her and is like, no, you know what, I want to be friends, give me your information and stuff like that. So we get that final little thing at the end, and that just kind of like wraps it all up.
I would say that the difference between like the show and the movie probably occurs in that last episode, where we get a few more details and stuff, because like in the movie you do see like the exact same bender almost, but then Sylvie brings him to his house, and then the understanding is that Jasmine, his daughter, doesn't really want anything to do with him, because she's seeing him fall apart, and Emma's not around anymore, and like he kind of struggled with Jasmine for a long time. But then Emma was the one who kind of brought them together. But then in the movie, the kind of final, the before final scene is that Ian walks into the cafe where Dexter owns, and he's like, oh yeah, that's my wife and kids out there, and like he's like, something along the lines of like, Emma lit up when you were in the room and I hated you because you didn't deserve her.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a conversation like that in the show, like when Ian goes to like visit him with everyone, like on the anniversary type of thing, where he does say, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna head off. I've got like a wife and 3 kids now, actually. And he says basically like, I hated you for a long time because of all of this kind of stuff, but they do have like a bit of like a good conversation.
Yeah, and then he and Jasmine climb up Arthur's seat in the movie, and,
well, that's it, he was going to do it, like, she's like, can we climb it? And his dad's like, I will see you back at the hotel.
Yeah, and he nopes out, and, like, she's asking all about Emma and stuff, so... Yeah, it's just a really, really sweet, sad story.
It like don't get me wrong, it does have like a very hopeful tone at the end, but it's very melancholic. So if you're getting into it, just be aware of that. It's very emotional, especially like those last few episodes. So if anything, just like be aware. But hey, if you want like a good time, like look, the performances are good, the writing is really good. There's like not really much of a downside to it. So I'm happy that we at least got to, like have like a good adaptation of something.
Yeah.
Which is nice. We can't always say that. So it's really nice, especially when you make like an entire series. Not always something that's going to work out that well. So this was a really great kind of adaptation. I think it shows how much the author was involved in the production as well.
Oh, definitely. So, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, we've been talking for an hour.
If you're still here.
Yeah. Thank you. And if you guys, hopefully you guys, if you've gotten to this point, hope you've actually seen the series and maybe like the movie, but whatever your thoughts are on it, you can let us know about that over on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at FullyBookedCA. And you can also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/book was way better. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.